I don't buy the concept of polytheism. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob was one. And so, moving on, Canaanite hymns transferred to Yahweh in the Psalms. I'd have to study each one of those. Really would, because there's so much, general statements that are being made nowadays in regard to these things. I really want to see, which Psalms we're dealing with here, and if we're looking at, the Canaanite text, I want to see the Canaanite text. I want to see that. So maybe I'll study that someday. But if you want to reference that specifically, then then perhaps I would look into it. But I wouldn't be too persuaded by that, since it was attributed to the Lord, and it was in a sense Judaized, or in a sense that we could say that. Most individuals who hold the documentary theory are into the natural worldview. They don't want God. Well, not that they don't want God interfering, but they don't believe that God interferes in the history of mankind. And so, why not just explain all of the miracles away? Why let's just let go of miracles? But I don't know if you're really like that. I mean, do you believe in miracles? I mean, in what sense do you believe in miracles? How much of a miracle? If it's like large, like the parting of the Red Sea, is that like just totally unbelievable, or or if it's like maybe if the donkey who talked to Balaam is like more believable? Is it more believable to think that a donkey talked to the prophet Balaam than it is to believe that Moses parted the Red Sea? I don't know. Let me know. I'm interested. I'm interested in finding out. And so you're interested in how all this developed. You're interested in how all of this religion developed. How did it come to be? That's what you said. So basically, it's an invention. It's a man-made invention. It's not something that, or was it that man was inspired by mythology? God spoke to man through the mythology. So, I'm just eating pizza and drinking beer with you. We're kicking it in the backyard here, okay? To me, drinking beer, eating pizza, talking about biblical studies and theology, now that's a good time. Let's get drunk and be gluttonous and talk about theology. So anyway, you mentioned the Q Gospel. I mentioned the Q Gospel, and you talked about the Gospel of Thomas, somehow lending support to that. From what I can see, most of the scholars generally assign a date from the mid to late 2nd century for the Gospel of Thomas. The earliest quotation by a church father, Irenaeus of Lyon, around 185 AD, somewhere around there. So somewhere before that, the Gospel of Thomas came into being. Some people speculate as early as the 80s AD, but there's not too much supporting that. And again, speculation. I think that it's those who hold on to the idea of form criticism. They just love the fact that the Gospel of Thomas is filled with sayings of Jesus. And since form criticism seeks to break up the gospel into its different forms, being that of myth, like, and one of those categories is sayings, then the Gospel of Thomas is just like a wonderful little example of the sayings aspect of it. But then again, it's all speculation still. And in regard to Q, that's a source behind the source of what some would call the source behind the mark, which is interesting because you say you're going more toward a Lucan priority now. I myself am a Matthean. So, because I do believe that there was an earlier Hebrew form of the book of Matthew. So, I can't really buy into the form criticism. I can't buy into the documentary theory because it's come so far in the last 100 years. It's just basically destroyed itself. I've got a lot of links in the side there on a lot of different problems with the theory. Moving on to the virgin birth, you give a few examples. You give Karna as a virgin birth, a Hindu text from the Bhāgavata Purāṇa. I looked this up and let's see what we got here. Scholars point out that the Puranic texts are fluid and dynamic, often citing more ancient material and undergoing later interpolations. They caution that it is meaningless to define a specific date Purana because generations of storytellers have been involved in its transmission and adaptation. Going on to say that the text of the Bhāgavata Purāṇa, as it stands, dates to the latter half of the first millennium AD. So we're talking 10th century, CE here. Okay. So basically, when were these stories of this virgin birth inserted? Perhaps sometime between the 2nd century and the 9th century? I don't know. Could have certainly been after the date of Christ. Anyway, Perseus, we see no actual mention of a virgin birth in the story. Leda, we see Zeus basically having intercourse with Leda in the form of a swan. So what we're not seeing a virgin birth concept there. Hercules, we see the same kind of a thing. So no, I'm still not buying the whole virgin birth as a pagan idea, or in the same sense that Christ was born of a virgin. So anyway, after that, I say thanks to all. Keep seeking truth. God bless you. Amen.